All right, everyone. Welcome to Kink 101 series. We're going to go ahead and get started. I can figure out how to work this slide deck. All right. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Primal. I know, very exciting. I have been waiting for this particular topic forever. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about in Kink. And I specifically saved it until a couple in so that I had to calm down and be, and prepare for it. So we're going to talk about some rules today. We're going to do introductions around both the who's sitting on the oh my gosh, I can't think. Panel, thank you. And the participants who are also participating. We're going to briefly go over what is Kink and BDSM. We're going to go over some just basic stuff on primal characteristics, the 6 characteristics kind of broken down, and then we're going to go into an open discussion. All right, so some quick general rules. During this class, we use Kink fake names to basically, protect the guilty. A lot of people just want to keep their identities separate from the real world, so that's why we do that. If you're comfortable using your real name, that's outstanding. But we just respect those that want to use Kink pseudonyms. This class is recorded and it's posted on YouTube to benefit the entire Kink community. You can find that link on the Wolfspirit website. And this is a seminar, and this is an open discussion seminar. So as I'm going through the curriculum, just ask questions as you have them. This is a zero judgment zone. So your kink may not be my kink, and that's okay. The big thing is just have an open mind and a kind heart. And both Diosa and I have a one-strike policy. Any type of lewd or crude behavior, you're going to simply get ejected from the class and pretty much banned from any further Wolfspirit and Diosa events. And anyone who doesn't believe I do this, we actually just did this to someone who was harassing someone at one of the events on FetLife, and they are now banned from all events. So take that seriously when we say we don't play around with treating other kinksters poorly. So we're going to introduce the host real quick. My name is Jay Wolfspirit. I'm a kink coach and kink educator. Over to Diosa. Would you like to say hi?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Sorry, we're doing this a little bit today.
Mute, there you go. That's really not me, Bart.
Good morning. I'm moored just south of Preston Bagot, which is 5 miles south. And in those 5 miles are 17 locks, so fairly close to space. However, I have got 2 days to do them, so that is absolutely fine. It's considerably cooler today. There's supposedly lots of thunderstorms.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Very soon, I'll be back on board in the Midlands.
Nice. All right. Good evening, everyone. All right. We're glad to be back. How's everything going? Good? Your engineer Marie there. All right. And then I'm going to head it over to BrightEyes and Mike.
BrightEyes and Mike.
Hi, it's BrightEyes and Mike. We are owners of Kinky Better Bondage, and we're here to host.
All right, thank you very much, BrightEyes.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to introduce real quick to our panel tonight. So tonight's guest panel, we have 4 primals. So exciting. We have Mindy, say hi.
Hello.
We also have Marie.
Hello.
Hi. And then tonight we have Travis. Say hi, Travis.
Hi.
And Travis is so much easier than Singlora.
Singlora.
I love it.
No, I had definitely.
Let me just raise the volume here a little bit so I can hear people.
Now drifted under a long bridge. I leapt off and pulled the boat.
All right, so we'll talk about, go around real quick and introduce the participants. Clockwork, do you want to say hi?
Once the nose of the boat edged through, I could pull it again on the centre line.
Everybody can mute their mics when they're not using them. Clockwork, do you want to say hi?
Fix it there, as there was someone else coming.
Hi, Clockwork Hannibal from FetLife. I've been meeting. I'll be, attending more. So.
What's your orientation and role, Clockwork?
Oh, sorry. I don't know, like primal top-ish switch. Yeah, that works.
And how long have you been in the community?
Oh gosh, since about 8 years.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Indeed. Thank you.
Miss Kissimmee, do you want to say hi?
Sure. Hi. You can find me on FetLife as Miss Kissimmee. I believe I'm a switch, but I'm still learning. I've been practicing for about 2 years. I plan to attend more meetings.
Oh, welcome. Red, would you like to say hi?
Hi, my name is Bratty Red on FetLife, and as that would assume, I am a bratty submissive, and I've been getting involved for the last year.
Welcome, Red. Over to Miss K. How are you again?
I am good. I am a hot wife, cuckoldress, primal, switch, evolving, all that. And been in for about 3 years.
Very good, thank you. Bear, do you want to say hello?
I go by Bear, and yes, that is FetLife and or in person. It's one of the names I go by in person. I've been creeping FetLife for probably going on 10 years now. More active the last 2, and I'd say Dom/exploring.
Thank you, Bear. Jocelyn, would you like to say hello?
Noise unmuted me. Hi there, Phantom Fan on FET. Primary categorization is bratty. I help you figure out the difference between a bottom and a submissive, but bratty really leans into primal prey fairly well. So, and been exploring the kink community for almost 4 years now.
And I love your FET name.
Thank you.
What's a reference? I'm curious.
Phantom of the Opera, obviously.
Oh my God, you said the exact right thing. I'm mildly upset.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that offline.
We'll talk, great.
I've seen it 16 times, but anyway. Over to Horny Flowers. How are you? Horny Flowers. I just got a notification, Horny Flowers raised hand. I don't know what that means.
She's saying hello.
Oh, okay, you just said.
Sorry, I couldn't.
There you
figure
are.
out how to so on FetLife, I am Horny Flowers. I originally started off about 6 months ago. I've been knowing that I was at least switchy and definitely bratty, and now I've kind of fallen to the realization that I'm definitely primal and have a lot of fun as primal.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, you and I have had a couple primal conversations, so you're gonna love this class.
Yeah.
All right, did I miss anybody? Okay, perfect. All right, so we're gonna go into real quick to review what is kink and BDSM. We talked about this in the last 2 classes. BDSM is basically an umbrella term for consensual practices that are involved bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, and of course, sadomasochism. BDSM sexuality is based on an actual power dynamic, not so much a gender, and that's enacted through various like-minded or compatible activities. The big 3 things with kink, it comes down to behavior, the engaging behaviors that generate a certain power dynamic, the attraction, experiencing attraction towards acts with a certain power dynamic, identity, adopting an identity that conveys a certain power dynamic. So those three things really defines what your kink orientation is. So in those orientations, and those three orientations are dominant, submissive, and switch, you have different roles. We talked about this the last session about all the different roles, whether it's dom, sub, switch, you have all like the daddy and the daddy dom and dominatrix. Subs, you have like littles, you have bottoms, all these different roles. So switch has those roles as well. And one of the biggest ones in switch is primal. So we kind of had a little committee here for a while, and we formed some definitions so that we could put this educational stuff together. And what we came up with for primal is someone whose sexual preference, identity, orientation is neither consistently dominant nor submissive, but can be either depending upon the environment, the situation, and the personal dynamic with others. Similar to a switch, this type of dynamic is also versatile. However, primals usually engage in a conscious or unconscious struggle for dominance. And that's key here, the struggle for dominance. This struggle can occur on a physical, psychological, or sexual chemistry level. And it's quite common that primals identify with animalistic aspects and trait in their relationships or sexuality. And again, anyone want to jump in and talk about anything that we're going over in the curriculum part here? Please just jump in and add.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to throw it out there.
Go for it.
Questioning the phrase struggle for dominance.
Yes.
If someone identifies as a primal prey, are they struggling more for dominance or simply for survival almost? Because usually someone who identifies as prey, more of a submissive type identity. And I would think that isn't necessarily struggling so much for dominance, but just to continue with the scene. Thoughts on that idea?
Agreed. And there's actually, we're going to go into it in a little bit here with the struggle for dominance. There was a shift in primal that happened. There was like a culture change.
Okay.
So I'll get to that in like 2 minutes.
Jump the gun. Okay.
So this is a relatively new phenomenon in BDSM culture, primal is. Primalism is also often associated with animal play. Pet play and furies are actually linked into the primal community. While all these may share key characteristics, it kind of stands apart due to the focus on instinct, perception, usually as a disdain for social convention, and an agonizingly unpredictable DNS dynamic. And that's kind of where you were getting into, Jocelyn, a little bit. This may also seem confusing until you actually get to know someone who is primal. And I mean, this is kind of where a lot of us have experience here. We'll be at a play party, and out of nowhere, Mindy will just like jump on me and start biting my back, or Miss K will come over and tackle me to the ground, or I'll just out of nowhere just bite Marie on the back of the arm, and we'll kind of initiate a primal play situation.
I'll get bitten by 3 other people.
So with those characteristics, there's really 6 core primal traits. And it's kind of, primal is very complicated, and it gets more and more complicated because it got more and more populated as it grew within the kink community. And that's where originally what primal was, it was kind of its own thing that involved, struggle play and these 6 characteristics, which are embrace dominance, competitiveness, nurturing, protection, instinct, and animalistic behavior. And those 6 things kind of really make up primal. As it got more popular within the kink community, people started wanting to more identify with just being dominant or just being submissive. But even if you identify more leaning one side or the other, you still have these 6 things. And again, these 6 things are really kind of what it all comes back to in all the research I've done between FetLife and a couple of the books I read and things like that. So with dominance and competitiveness, this comes back to the struggle for dominance. With primals, the dominant partner is not predetermined. It's literally a competitive selection process. So primals are switches. So for me, for example, I'm dominant until someone more dominant comes along. That is extremely rare. And I got challenged at the last play party by that. She was a very amazing woman. She drove up from Richmond because she was curious. She is a primal, and I was going to the party, and she wanted to come and talk to me and learn about, how I am primal and stuff like that. So we'll get into that story in a little bit. But again, that struggle for dominance, this is kind of the unique way in which primals make a determination for dominance. And this is an ongoing process for many primals. So I'm in a dynamic with 6 Feet Sugar, and every time I interact with 6 Feet Sugar, there's an actual ongoing process of who's the dominant one. Now, 6 Feet Sugar is a submissive masochist, so as soon as I get within like a foot of her, she usually caves and it's just decided. So where it may be different with other people I interact with and things like that, again, it's always that ongoing process. And this is where we get into the primal prey stuff. Many people have already kind of established those roles. So when you come across 2 people, Marie is a primal prey, we come together, we've kind of already identified that without having to go through all the steps. So it's kind of just the way it works out in advance. Now, where this kind of gets tricky with the primal prey and the primal thing is if you go to some of these other events and you run into other primals typically don't like subscribe to the whole dom submissive thing. You could be the most dominant person in the world, and when you come up to that primal, they're like, no, you're submissive, excuse me, and keep walking.
So I'm going to clarify something real quick.
Please, go ahead,
speaking kind of like where you're at with what Jocelyn was saying earlier, with a primal prey, it's not about, to think of it as dominance is a little odd, but for them, it's more about they want to be dominated, but they need you to prove that you are capable and going to make it happen. A lot of people refer to it, like misinterpret sometimes it as brat play or brats.
Yep.
But
100%. But that's where the struggle comes in.
Well, I totally agree.
You need to earn it.
We test for the predator to our prey to see if they can handle what we are able to give them.
No, absolutely. And that's where basically the dominant party is determined by 3 factors. And that's physical besting. So, all right, we're going to the ground and we're going to figure out who has more power than the other. And this happens all the time. In fact, I've had to start kind of pushing people off, like, no, please not tonight. My chiropractor's ready to kill me. It also comes down to psychology. So sometimes somebody just has a psychological hold over the other. And this
under psychology, I'd add in the concept of respect. I'm as a bigger person, it is not often someone physically can take me down. But even smaller people, if you prove competent enough and I respect you enough, I'll at least cede some ground.
Yes, exactly.
That I yield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's what happened at the party that we were talking about with the primal from Richmond. All she wanted to do was wrestle me. All she wanted to do. And from the moment she came in, she wanted to basically grapple. And I'm like, no, we're not grappling, not tonight. And she was getting aggravated. And what happened was, so where she was trying to challenge me physically, I had her on the psychology, and I was just, no. I'm sorry, no, we're not doing it. And I made her wait the entire night. And then at the end of the night, I grappled with her for a little bit. So I gave it to her, but I still bested her. So this is kind of where that psychology comes in and everything like that. And then of course, chemistry, sometimes you get within someone's foot and you just, okay, you can have me. It's just kind of the way it is. Travis, how do you experience this?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
How do you, like with out of these three, which do you feel that you use the most?
I mean, physical, but I mean, that's just because it's easy for me. Like it's I am not real big on mind games. Typically, if you want to try and push my boundaries psychologically, you're just going to end up getting growled at.
This is Kay.
Hi, Miss Kay.
For me, it kind of has to be more of the psychology and the chemistry, because I'm not very big and I don't think of myself as very strong physically, but it is very difficult to put me in a mental space that makes me want to submit. So you can have me pinned, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm submitting.
So yeah, and that's actually a really good point. So you can physically best someone and they just won't give in. And you find that a lot between primals when they go into primal play and their physical besting. One might have a better technical game, meaning they've studied, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Aiki Jiu-Jitsu or one of these other, submissive-based martial arts, and they have a better technical game, but that other one is just not going to submit because they refuse to either give in. Now, part of that might just be ego, but the other is if those other two things, psychology and chemistry, are playing into it, no, it is determined by these three things. And just because someone is bigger and stronger, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are more dominant. And this is where the other two come in. If that person knows they're not going to be able to not be able to beat them at that level, and they take back and they want to play psychology and chemistry, then you basically get into a standoff with that other primal. And this is where it kind of gets complicated and actually it can get interesting in many ways. Mindy, what do you think?
For me, it is a little of all three, I think. I'm very much the same way as Kay, whereas even if someone has bested me physically, I'm going back for more. Like, you may have won this round, but like, let me shoot that eye on you, and I'm going back at it. So, but then you have the people for the chemistry that just melt me. Like, okay, whatever you want. Like, I'm on the ground on my back, sure. Like, how about it? So it depends. Or
the opposite.
Yeah, or a lot of it, like genders have come into play as well. Whereas, like Miss Marie, I will just do whatever to her. But whereas Jim will be like, it's more of that physical fighting.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, is it depends if it's guys and girls wrestling,
Yes.
because usually I see the first on there.
Physical.
Physical, mostly between guys and girls. Because a girl finding another female, if you are very physical, finding somebody that's your equal is really tough.
Yes.
Yeah, so you usually see the girl go after a guy like she was with you. It's like, just challenge me, give me your 25%, and that's my 100% as a female, and that's cathartic.
Yeah.
But like you said too, it doesn't mean that she's going to acquiesce or give in. She's going to fight her ass off and never submit, because she's just going to be pissed at herself that she can't beat you, but that's what she needs.
And for me, there is no real physical besting. I am being bested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I love that. But that's my prey.
Is still there. We're looking for the struggle.
So for me, as the prey, I am really big on energies and that chemistry, but also the psychology, where, like Jocelyn said, where that brat comes in. I like to instigate. I like to test to see where I can get out of somebody and see what that reaction is. And I love to see what that reaction will be. Usually a lot of times it's getting bitten or other things, which I love. So a lot of that physical besting doesn't really happen as a prey, but the other two most definitely do. And as Mindy said, it doesn't matter the gender or what, it's that connection, that energy, and how I can give myself to that person.
Absolutely.
And I can feel that primal energy from that person. You can tell for someone who's not into it, who's definitely not a primal, who is probably more dominant or submissive and it's not into that thing. As primals, we generally can feel that energy amongst each other, and go with it based on what that aspect we are with them.
No, absolutely. And this is Wolfspirit. Pre-COVID, Diosa and I actually ran a kinky grappling session. And we would do this every month, and it was so much fun. We would have people from all different, I'm getting there, from all different kink orientations. You had doms, you had subs, you had primals galore, and everyone just loved, just basically just grappling and having fun with it. And we would do it with no egos. But you would see some of these male doms come in, and they would basically like, oh, I'm going to challenge Diosa. And then next thing you know, because Diosa paid attention to what I taught her, she has them like basically with their head between her legs squeezing, and they're like, okay, I submit. And suddenly now their egos are bruised and they don't return that.
Yeah, all the guys quit.
So essentially what happened was all of the other male doms quit the kinky grappling, and I'm grappling all these women. So Travis, that's an open invitation if you want to come after COVID's over.
I was about to say, as soon as I get my vaccine.
That comes into that energy. So I always say this because people like to be brats to Jay, because of that. We want to get that. That is what the energy he gives out. And it's so easy for us to tease and try to get a rise out of you.
Well, yeah, but that's actually forced me with the way I approach primal. I've had to adapt and change because of all the injuries I've gone through with, my previous life and all that stuff. I can't keep paying chiropractors, putting their kids through college at this point. So I've had to change my focus on primal from being so heavily focused on physical besting into the psychology and the chemistry side of it, and learn how to embrace those two more and create that presence and create those situations, even going into a physical situation. Somebody had a comment, go ahead.
Hello.
Did somebody have a comment?
I don't believe so.
we don't have it all on the screen. We just have the presentation, so we just hear by noises.
So primals have a respect for earning the dominant role through this struggle. And it's more than talk with primals. You're expected to demonstrate it. And we kind of talked about that a little bit. So we went into this too. The demonstration may not involve an actual physical contest of strength, but you probably should not be surprised if it goes there, because it usually does. And they don't care how you as a kinkster see yourself. At the end of the day, it's how that interaction with them measures up. And this can be complicated with the other orientations in kink, and how basically interactions are and approached. The woman who kind of taught me everything I know about primal apex, she would talk a lot about this, because she would actually speak at some of these big events like Winter Fire and all this stuff. And she would talk about how she would have difficulty interacting with other doms and things like that because of her primal nature, especially if the doms approached her with a lot of ego and stuff. And she would get very frustrated because, of course, being the alpha primal really of Northern Virginia for a while, she was extremely dominant. First thing she wanted to do was just take them to the ground. And you can't always do that in the real world. So some of her stories were amazing on how she would go through life, and both in kink and outside of life. And she was a model for a lot of this because she was very, very successful at what she did at the executive level. So some of the other characteristics of Primal is nurturing and protective. So Primals, we absolutely love play. In fact, right now, Mindy and Marie are both like nuzzling me and rubbing my back. But we love biting and scratching. Don't bite my chest. Biting, ow. Biting, scratching, nibbling, licking, nuzzling, and God, a desire to just be petted. Touch me, please. Travis, do you feel the same way with a lot of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. I mean, my primary love language is touch. What can I say?
Yeah.
Do you find you're also an empath?
Yeah. Much more in tune to what you're doing than what you're saying. You know, sorry about that. Yeah, you say everything's fine until you're blue in the face, but you know, the body language says otherwise, and you know, we just pick up on that harder, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Marie. I've noticed that too. If I had known about this probably earlier, I would have been, oh yeah, this makes a total sense. Yeah, I got the empath thing, but mine's definitely nonverbals. Even with my job, nonverbals have always been something I've been able to pick up on. Sometimes
someone else is more likely to say, "Hey, how are you feeling?" Whereas a primal is more likely to walk up behind you and just stroke your back, and there's a cue to that's an invitation to say how you're feeling. Like
and I would go up to people. I was like, I've noticed something's off. Is everything okay? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to just sit and just not talk about it? So yeah, that's a really big aspect.
And just something for the new primals, always ask if you're encountering a new primal whether they want to be touched or bitten, right, Mindy?
Yes, please.
We had one party where Mindy was approached by a newer primal who bit Mindy so hard she still has the mark.
Yes.
And it was a little, you know, I mean, it wasn't unconsensual. But it was close to it. So you have to be careful with how you interact with people. Never touch people unless you have an established dynamic with them, or you ask, may I touch you, bite you? You know,
and that goes to the entire kink community. That's not just primals.
Agreed. Absolutely. So primals also tend to form small packs that are pretty much like family. Anyone who's gone on my personal account can see I have like 8 people who are in my pack, and they are family. I mean, during COVID, you know, I had members of my pack over for dinner. One Easter dinner, I think 2 years ago, we had like the entire pack was over basically, and it was like a big family gathering. So it was fantastic. You also see things where they do like primal pileups. So I know that's like the best. Like primals will all get together, they'll all like cuddle up on top of each other and like watch a movie.
I believe you're referring to a cuddle puddle.
Thank you. Cuddle puddle. That just sounds dirty. Anyway.
It sounds like water sports.
Yeah, exactly.
Puppy pile.
Puppy pile.
A
primal pile. So yeah, and these are just a fantastic way, and it goes into the empath side of things and the touch and all that, and it's just an amazing feeling to be, you know, basically just curled up with those who you're in a primal pack with, and just watching a movie or playing a board game or playing a dirty board game, or you know, all those fun things. And I won't say that it doesn't occasionally turn into play, but you know, that's not the main purpose of a primal pile, and it's really to just be in each other's spaces and pass energy and just enjoy each other. Now that's small primal groups. What I've learned about large primal groups, it is absolute chaos. So Apex and I tried to organize a like Northern Virginia primal group. And this was like the worst idea we've ever had. It was complete chaos. Everyone was going in a different direction. We could never get anyone to commit to anything. And that's just because of the nature of primals. Primals are just, we're instinctual. We don't plan things. So to plan events and to get support for a like Northern Virginia primal group, it was just, it always ended in frustration and, you know, just disappointment. And Apex really tried, and she had the respect of basically the entire DC, you know, primal, DC, Virginia, Maryland primal community. But even then, we still couldn't get everyone on the same page to plan something. It was usually just me, her, and like 3 other primals ended up somewhere after we had like rented something because all these people committed, paid money, and then they didn't show up. So.
This is Marie. There's something, because on that side, it talks about, I cannot pronounce that word.
Oh, that's the fun word I found.
That involves being sexually aroused or bitten or being bitten. So I have found out with people who are not primal, I've had to hold myself back because people tend to like to squeeze and to scratch and to bite when being sexually active with each other. But that also then starts triggering my that primal side. And so sometimes if someone is not that way, it can scare them when it gets into it. So because it becomes overwhelming for a person who is not primal. So I've learned that when I'm with somebody who is not that way, that I need to kind of hold that back, but also need to kind of warn them that we can't go to a certain part because then I might get into that state and I don't know what I'm doing. Because again, when you get into that kind of state with somebody and you're sexually involved, you kind of lose.
Yes.
I don't exactly black out, but you kind of get really into that state. Yes. And you're just basically going through your natural instincts. You're just following what your body is doing, what it wants to do. And you don't exactly have full control of what you are doing because you are just going through it. So sometimes you have to be aware of some of those instincts that you have, because if you are not with someone who has those primal instincts, it can be scary for them.
No, and actually there's a term for what you're talking about, and it's called primal space. That is a real thing. And
piggyback on Marie for a second. This is Jocelyn.
Yeah.
I've said before that, you know, biting for me can help lead to subspace, which is, you know, what a lot of bottoms and subs are always seeking after and looking for. And if, you know, your partner, you know, just thinks, oh, we're just doing, you know, a little love play, a little, you know, a little nibbling, that could really sort of send them the wrong message when you sort of, you know, go into that headspace. So I like that there's a term for it.
There is, and I didn't get into that in this particular seminar because I noticed as I was putting this together, I was just getting more and more and more information, and it was just getting to be too much, and I wanted to really just, you know, the second half of these, I like to just leave it open so that we can just discuss and talk things. And so I limited it just to the characteristics. But just a real quick, primal space is similar to subspace, except with the primal goes into a frenzy-like state. So basically, they go into an animalistic, I don't want to say rage, that's a bad word for it, but they go into basically all of those primal characteristics just take over. And when you go into this state, you have to go into someone you trust that they, Diosa is like laughing right now because she knows some of my stories. Because someone has to, like, you have to trust that they can handle you. And one, like the last long-term relationship I had, we actually, she got me there. She got me into primal space, and I went into that, you know, mode, and it actually like scared her and it freaked her out, and she couldn't handle it, and I had to like snap out of it. And that gets into safe words and all that. Like you should always practice safe words in kink and BDSM. And as soon as she started yelling that safe word, man, I snapped right out of it and was like, oh my God, what did I do? So, you know, play safe, play with safe words and all that, especially when, you know, you're going into something extreme as primal space. Anybody want to add anything with primal space while we're on the topic?
I brought it up.
Well, you were trying to just.
Oh, go for it.
I was going to say, this is Kate. You were trying to describe it, and I think you were using the word rage, and I don't necessarily think rage is the correct word, like you said, but I think it's more of a lack of frontal lobe control.
That's actually a perfect description. Yeah.
I was gonna say it the exact same thing in a more woo-woo kind of way. It's all the ego controls are gone.
Yes.
And you just, it's like your id, right? Just like projected, and it can be intense. It's not a rage, but it can be intense.
No, and that's a much better way to put it.
Would manic state be a better description?
I wouldn't say manic. Well, for me anyway. I mean, for manic, I don't know, that indicates like a lack of focus. But I guess whenever I get into that state, I'm like hyper focused on whoever I'm with. So yeah.
So that's a very good point. And Diosa actually also too just brought up a very good point that for some people, some of the people who I've worked with have had PTSD. And we've played, you know, doing primal play, and you have to be careful because if you tap too deep into some underlying issues, it can quickly turn into a rage. And I actually had an injury on the job that was a result of someone who went into a PTSD. Basically, they went what's called condition black, and they had no idea what was going on. They just went into survival mode. Now, that's not primal space. That has to do with, you know, some issues that they need to work with through actual like counselors and, you know, professional psychological help. And that's not what we're talking here in kink, but we do need to make sure that, you know, when doing this type of play, you understand those things can pop up in just regular kink, in like just a regular DNS dynamic. When you're working with a submissive, if you push them too hard in like impact play and all that, you know, past trauma can come to the surface. So whenever you're doing this type of play, make sure that, you know, you have, you know, those conversations with people so you know your boundaries and they know their boundaries so that you can make sure you're playing within a safe area, so to speak. Anything you want to add on that, Diosa?
No, I agree. Like I said, that rage thing is real. Even for primals, sometimes they just get to that when they're in their zone and they're relying on you to protect them and pull them out of it. Sometimes it's an extreme beatdown that pulls them out because they're seeing red.
Yeah.
Or, you know, sometimes they can't hear the agreed upon words, and it's just different for different people. So
Yeah.
In my experience, not always a PTS trigger, but their primal space is just very different.
Yeah, and that's just it.
I would add one thing, just because I've found that I've gotten into that headspace. I guess I view it very generically. I've certainly done it through like grappling and things like that. But I've also gotten there with DDLG or strict masochism. I've topped some very heavy pain sluts, and you know, I don't know if you beat the shit out of someone for long enough, right? Like figuratively speaking, you know, they really go into a deep kind of emotional area. And similarly with some DDLG, an ex of mine would sort of disassociate in a good way. And yeah, it was a very primal space, even though I wouldn't say that the setup or the scene was strictly primal. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the thing, is that like a lot of this stuff, we try to put it in a box, but the dividers between those boxes are real thin. Like saying this is the rule, this is how it is never really work for everyone in every situation.
Well, it's you're playing with the whole unconscious. It doesn't have forms.
Well, and also I think a lot of kink is a spectrum, and one area tends to bleed over into other areas, especially when you then throw in other things like ethical non-monogamy and actually taking it into a sexual situation as opposed to just a strict play situation. Then, at what point are you actually primal versus I just really like rough sex? That tends to be a question that people ask me is, well, what's the difference between primal and just I like scratching and I like biting and rough sex? So what's the difference?
Well, and we've had primal scenes evolve into CNC.
Everybody can mute their mics when they're not talking, so that I think the news is going on in someone's background. I'm sorry, somebody was talking about CNC.
I'm just saying that like we've had primal scenes devolve into CNC. Like they started out one way and then they just progressed that way.
Oh yeah, it started out as playful grappling, and now I'm duct taping your hands and putting you in the trunk. I mean, it happens all the time, right, Mindy?
It's a challenge.
No. Oh no. No.
BrightEyes, get the duct tape. So that kind of derailed my train of thought. Real quick to just finish up the basic topics here. So primals do tend to trust and embrace instincts in most things. It's especially prevalent in sexual activities where sexual play is driven by stream of conscious desires and raw animalistic impulses, which we just talked about. They perceive their environment through basically all 5 of the senses. There's a psychology paper that I referenced in here where basically humans tend to just use only their sight and hearing. They don't really get into a lot of the other senses, predominantly because we heavily rely on those. And with primals, you see a lot more of the use of the other senses. I think it was Miss Kay, last party, the party before, she was like, you have the most wonderful smell. And like, she was asking me like what beard oil and stuff and use and things like that. But that's such a primal thing. You can just smell somebody sometimes. Like if you come into a party and you're like, ooh, I smell someone I know. And you're trying to figure out who it is.
Or their voice,
Yeah.
you hear them by their laugh, or
exactly.
their tone of voice, or how they speak.
I know for me, like it's the sense of smell that usually triggers the best and the worst memories that I had. I can walk into a room and smell something and have a flashback from something horrible that happened in previous stuff. Or I can smell something and remember like some of the most amazing times I've ever had. Does anyone else
Smell
smell
is definitely a thing for me. I mean, it's a huge aspect for me, and especially places. I walked into Diosa's after having not been there for probably 6 months and just took a deep breath and felt my whole body relax because I was surrounded by that comforting smell and all the sensations and the energy in the room was there. And so, even though it was just me and one other person, it was that smell of that room. And yeah, so smell is a huge thing for me. But you were talking about most people just relate on sight. One thing that I have noticed is that some primals can recognize somebody from a far distance with sight because they look at the way the entire person looks. So I can recognize somebody far away just by how they walk.
Yeah.
and say who that person is before they come anywhere near me or before I'm close enough to see who they are.
No, absolutely. What about you, Murray?
I totally agree. Like Miss Kay, I'll be able to recognize you from across the room when you come in, and I'll know when I go over and basically jump on you and hug you. But I do that with a lot of people that I notice in regards to that. So you can tell by how the person stand, not even just by their walk, but how they comport themselves, how they stand, how they sit, just how their shoulders are slunched or they're straight, even their body image. Like Jay here, you can always tell because he's got a certain way he holds himself. So you know that's what he looks like. But that's the same way with other people as well. So again, that goes within that whole thing of being able to see those nonverbal things, those things that give off a sound or give out a sight. So such as the smell, the taste, and those feelers.
And I think that also ties into being an empath. Empaths are also able to do that quite often because they're picking up on so many of those nonverbal cues that I think it's not uncommon for primals to also be empaths.
It also helps to know somebody's not good either.
So we've had that problem. Yeah. Absolutely. Go ahead, Travis.
I was gonna say that I agree with all of those except scent. I have a notoriously terrible smell, and scent means nothing to me. I have none of the like.
Oh no, I'm gonna disagree with you there. This is Jocelyn. You have commented when I finish working out, that is when you like my scent best.
Okay.
You have made that comment
really?
Since high school.
I don't know.
That if I finish working out before I take a shower, that's when you hug me and tell me that I smell good.
As someone who likes crunchy hippie forest nymphs, I can second that.
But that's possibly also because when your smell is the strongest. So if he doesn't have a very developed sense of smell, it's when he notices it the most.
It's all pheromones. It goes straight to your brain.
God bless pheromones. And Clockwork, I like your style.
Thank you. I like your style too.
So just want to open up a general discussion here. So we're going to kind of go back and forth between the guest panels and the hosts here. What are you laughing at? Yes, Travis has no shirt on.
No, I'm making funny of Mindy's little.
Oh, they like Mindy's photo.
I'm a fighter. I can't help it.
So I'll open it up to the participants now to ask questions to the panel members or the hosts. Anything you want to talk about that has to do with Primal, feel free. Now's your chance.
My hair was nice there. She's commenting me on my picture.
So Clockwork. So whereabouts have you kind of experienced the Primal community and things like that?
Oh gosh, it was more just like, because I've done a lot of different things in the kink scene, right? So I did like lots of impact. I've done DDLG. I've done a lot of swinging stuff, and I've kind of taken the common denominator of what I like from each of those. So there's like. So my FET name is pretty specific. So it's like Clockwork Orange and then, Hannibal. But that scene in Clockwork Orange where he comes home after like the night of ultra violence and he's like listening to Beethoven and like jacking off to that like dancing Jesus thing, like that's the headspace. Like that, it's like that. It's like that experience of flow, but you're. I don't know. It's just like this union of like hurt and I want to fucking kill something, and it all works. And so that's what I've called it. But I've learned a lot today, needless to say.
Very good. How about any of the other participants? Any other questions or questions you have? I know Horny Flowers, you're quite new to the primal orientation. Do you have anything or any questions or anything like that?
I would just say that I guess I've learned kind of by research and realizing, oh, maybe that's why I do that, or wow, that makes sense. Like I've always been a very bitey, scratchy, kissy type person, and my senses have always been what's driven me. I'm also an empath. All these things, I guess, finally started to come together as I was researching, and then like seeing myself in those situations and going, yeah, there you go. So it's just nice to learn from other people how it can evolve and how it's all different for each person, but yet very similar in different ways. Yeah, it's been really neat to hear.
So I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Kay.
This is Kay. Again, kind of going back to the idea of the difference between primal and rough sex. How would you, if someone is saying, "Oh, I'm primal," and they're insisting it's just because they like the scratches and biting and they're this way in their sex or their sexual encounters, how would you counter that? Would you even counter that? Or would you say, that's not what primal is? Exactly. No, I agree.
And rough sex isn't always primal.
No, that's a good point. And this kind of gets into a lot of the primal versus, what rough sex and really where the divide is. And for a long time when primal predator and primal prey came along, there was kind of a divide in the primal community where many of the original primals felt that, well, a primal predator was just a dom who likes rough sex, or a primal prey was just a submissive who likes rough sex. And, as I've tried to kind of understand and talk, and that was one of the reasons I wanted Travis to come on here, was because he is a primal predator and he can kind of, I guess, create a lot of those connections between the two. Travis, how do you think a lot of this, because this is the first time you've seen my curriculum with a lot of this stuff and basically had this conversation with me. How do you think how you experience primal is similar and different to a lot of what we've talked about here today?
I spent a lot of time this week trying to figure that out, honestly. For me, I've had more than a few people ask me, this primal thing seems interesting. Can you teach me? And it's like, I don't know. No, I can't. If it's something that just makes sense to you, if it doesn't register in your hindbrain, then I can. We can try, but it's nothing I can tell you. It's not. I'm not gonna I don't know. It's like describe your experiences, and if anything resonates, then cool. But I can't teach it to you. Yeah, that's it's
Yeah, I get that too, Travis.
Yeah, the whole point of the primal thing is it's animalistic. There's not a thought to it. There's not a structure to it. It's a connection and an energy, and you just kind of follow it where it goes.
No, absolutely. So I've had people approach me to hey, can you coach me on how to be a primal? And like you, I'd have to explain to them, so life coaching is life coaching, but I can coach you on the technical aspects of kink and BDSM, but you have to figure out what your kink orientation is. And then you have to figure out what your role is under that. And if you feel primal is your role, then that's how you feel and that's how you identify. And my recommendation to them is always come around the parties, be around other primals, And many of them were like, yeah, no, that's not for me. I don't want to get bit anymore. Or I really don't like being challenged all the time. I'm a dom. And I'm like, well, I'm a dom.
This is Jocelyn. I want to throw out another thing. I want to throw out a question, I guess, to some of the other primals. This past year with quarantine and everything, I've been really into hiking, and Travis, hiking isn't his favorite thing, but just getting into that nature setting really helps his primal come out and, you know, makes for some fun moments and everything. And I'm just kind of, you know, I guess querying the rest of the panel here. Does that resonate with any of you guys? Does that kind of feel natural, or, you know, hey, I can bust out the primal in the middle of wherever? Just throwing it out there.
Can I jump in? So whenever I drive up Forest Road 19 going up to Dolly Sods, and I hit that dirt road, and it's just about where it clears the tree line, and usually I'm in I don't know, like my crossover with like a tank top and like smoking a cigar, like that's it. I'm in, like I go from like I'm a little bit nervous to like be alone in the woods to like I'm in the zone, like that. So yeah, definitely being out in nature definitely brings it out in me.
Yeah, this is Mindy. I agree. It's the same for me with the quarantine. I definitely spent a lot more time traveling even to find the wooded areas. And it's funny because when you're walking, you almost have that sense of like, I see myself looking like this would be an amazing place to be hunted. And like, I really do. And
Oh yeah, if you drive around a back road and look around you the entire time going, I could tie someone to that. I could tie someone to that. I could tie someone to that.
Yeah, guilty.
Also, Mindy and I, this is Marie, even spent time walking with each other because we needed to get out there and do that.
It's very
and then being able to spend that time with each other and being able to just get each other's energies and be with each other out in that open area was just great.
And this gets into the empath part.
Yes.
So like this is Wolfspirit in the packs, yeah. So I actually religiously I identify as an animist. So like nature is my religion. So like that's how I reset my Zen. That's how I reset basically my whole self, is getting out and hiking and just being among like nature and the trees and all that. And I know Marie and Mindy, like they'll text me, hey, we're going hiking, come. And I'm like, I'm on the way, and we'll just all go hiking, you know. And that's like another like pack thing, you know, and it's the same thing that we talked about as that pack pile. You know, it's that, you know, basically that hiking through the woods is a pact and just resets and connects, and you know, you kind of just become one with like everything around you, and that's just an amazing feeling. How about some of the newer primals? Horny Flowers, how do you feel about nature and hiking and all that? Do you feel like a connection?
Oh yes. I've always been a nature person, and I find such peace and calm and happiness when I'm outside, enjoying the scenery, the earth. I like to be barefoot. I love the moon. I like to be naked outside. So those have always been something that I've been drawn to, even pre all this stuff. And now it just brings in a whole nother, on for things.
So let's actually talk to some of the other people now who are participants that have not identified as primal. Bear, how do you feel about some of the primal traits and things like that? Do you identify with any of them?
The possibility is there. I kind of want to see a primal play in action before I do it, though.
That's fair. No, that's fair. No, absolutely.
Don't we all?
I was just like, I volunteer.
This is Kay. Mindy, you're up for round two?
Oh, yes.
Me too.
Diosa, did you have a comment?
I know you didn't want to, that you wanted to narrow in on this particular aspect of being primal, but there's also a gentler side in the primals,
There
like
is.
somebody that identifies as a rabbit that's not trying to get bit or really even get caught or something like that. Or those that tap into their Wiccan side. So I think I don't identify as primal, but I can certainly relate to it. I'm just empathic also. But you know, those that are in tune with earth and nature, the Wiccan side, and being around the
Well, I was going to comment.
moon phases, those kind of things. So there's a gentler side. We went to something and they were doing the chanting and dancing around the fire, and it was just
drum
a
circle.
different type. Yeah, it was different than, you know, like the hunt or the fighting and all that. So it was different levels of it too.
What was the event you went to where they had the primal drums all night?
Fusion.
Yeah, Fusion. They have a primal area, and they actually do primal drums, like almost like through the entire night. They all take turns, you know, doing the drum circle and all that. And, you know, being an animist, I regularly do sweat lodges. And in the sweat lodge, you know, it has that animalistic like feel where basically you immerse yourself into the lodge, and they close the tent and they start the sweat, and it's like a wash over, and everything from, you know, the chanting to the storytelling to all that, it's very similar to like what you're talking about. And you're 100% correct with the animalistic side. You can identify as any type of animal.
Right.
And I mean, I've even met primals who identify, well, I'm a human primal. And that's fair. They feel that the animalistic or the animal identification side of it is hokey, and that's fine. But like, you know, like I identify with a wolf, wolf spirit. And you know,
My tattoo, right?
yeah, other people have similar identifications and things like that. You said a rabbit? Yeah.
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 Well, so I was going to comment earlier about, or when right before Diosa was the like a connection to the elementals. You know, fire, water blowing on the skin. A lot of that is very primal, but it's also the much softer side of primal. Usually, it's much more seductive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I use seduction a lot.
Yeah, we had been hoping to go to Beltane before quarantine happened because I don't think I would identify primal as my primary identity. However, the concept of that spiritual nature aspect really does speak to me, and I'd love to explore that more.
Joshua and Travis, if you guys end up going to Beltane, let me know. I'd love to meet you guys up there. That's something. Is it the one in Maryland?
Yeah, it's in Maryland.
Yeah, I've been wanting to go to that for years, and I've just never made it up there.
Not Frederick, I'm sorry, but Maryland.
Yeah, I forget what it coincides with, but there's something around there every year that we have to decide, okay, well, are we going to Beltane or are we skipping it for something else, this other thing? I don't remember what it is.
We're going to Beltane.
I love it. Any, what about clockwork? Do you identify with like a spirit animal or anything like that?
That's complicated. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a big cinephile, so I guess I like identify with like different movies.
Michelle, go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned Clockwork Orange, and you know, also like Hannibal Lecter as well, in the sense that it's right, like he loves art and Bach and, you know, eating the rude, right? Like he convinced Eddie Izzard to eat his own leg. Like that's pretty primal or metal or what have you.
Dumb to the extreme, sure.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean,
logical dumb, obviously.
The what? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I like to sort of distinguish, or maybe like contrast like primalness with, you know, maybe like High Protocol or something like that, where it's like this very scripted environment.
More ritualistic.
Yeah, it's more ritual, right? Exactly, and I think there's a lot of like there's a lot of ritual in different sorts of kinks, like I don't know, I would just like bimbofication or something like that, right? Like it's very formulaic, and I think not that there's anything wrong with that, like that's perfectly fine. In contrast to that, like primal is more like letting these instincts kind of flow through, and even with Hannibal, right? Like he's this pretty, I think, from an outward perspective, he's pretty logical, but like not so much, right? Like there's a lot of instinctual power just like being funneled through this rational faculty. Sorry.
This is Carrie.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you love the idea of a civilized veneer barely coating the surface of something very dark or animalistic underneath. That is what is appealing to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're one and the same thing. Like, I think that's the right. Like, people don't. I don't know. Like, you need something to like fuel great works, right? And that something isn't going to be up in the stars. It's going to be something deeper, right?
I think that was a really good description. I would definitely describe Hannibal as a controlled force of nature, almost.
Right. Yeah. So and that's right. Like if you can direct that, it's like controlled insanity, right? If you have uncontrolled insanity, then you're just everywhere, right? But if you can like focus that, it's like a laser, and it can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
So this is Wolfspirit. Hannibal is actually one of my favorite fictional characters. I've read all of the books, and in the books, they actually allude to the level of his dominance with his interaction with certain animals. And there was one scene in the book where he goes into someone's house and the dog comes out growling, and he actually, basically stares down the dog, and the dog like backs off and basically kind of simpers away. And it's the same thing with the pigs when they tried feeding him to the pigs in that one scene. He Clarice and the pigs just ran around him. So they play very heavily with that fictional character and how dominant his like almost aura is around, even the way he seduces and interacts with like high members of society and how they just kind of melt around him and how sophisticated he is.
Well, yeah, I would definitely. Well, who played Mason Berger in the series? What was Michael Pitt?
Mags.
Yeah, I would.
Mads.
No, Mads was Hannibal, but Mason Berger, the guy who tried to say
Anthony Hopkins. Wasn't it?
No, he means in the new one.
In the new one, it was Michael.
It was Michael Pitt.
Yeah. Well, so what he did was he fed him like a bunch of acid, and so that he was the guy was in, not Hannibal, but the Mason Berger was into autoerotic asphyxiation, which by the way is how David Carradine died, which I always say find what you love and then let it kill you. But in any event, so the guy's like wigging out on acid, like flipping around in like semi hanging himself, and then Hannibal was like, "Hey, you should cut your face off and like feed it to your dog." And he's like, "Yeah, sure, let's do that." And like, that's a connection.
That's a what is that? That's a psychological dominance right there.
Right. Yeah. It's fun to get into something.
To take that idea slightly further and go back to my roots and give Wolfspirit a fun let's talk about my Fett name. Restrained deep emotions is something that has always drawn me to that Phantom of the Opera, and I think Hannibal is a similar character with that. I have such wild and deep emotions. I can only control them through protocol and ritual and keep myself at bay almost.
So excited right now, Jocelyn. I love you. Just want to throw that out there. You're amazing. That is actually
So-
reasons why I love Phantom of the Opera, because
Mhm.
he is the ultimate Dom. You know,
Right?
he comes in and he basically starts grooming her. He takes her under his wing. He seduces her. He does all the things that we talk about, you know, with dominance and how you should basically take care of your submissive and work with your submissive and build her up.
And totally non-sexual, by the way, manages to do that.
All psychological and mental.
Yep.
Yeah, that I love that you brought that up. And I love your profile name.
Thank you.
So I have the Hannibal and the Phantom, especially with the Hannibal scene that we were kind of just talking about, it did make me brought up another kind of question or something that I thought would be interesting, and is the idea that Travis brought up about how sometimes primal scenes can go into consent, non-consensual play, CNC play. And so I guess I had another thought, or wanted to throw this out there, of the idea of, since primal is increasing in popularity, do you think that there is the opportunity for people, for predators or unethical people going into this, to use that as an excuse to play without safe words, to basically, you know, take someone to the red when they don't need to be taken there, to just be unsavory? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the biggest dangers out there. And it's something Diosa and I constantly run into with fake DOMs or DOMs that just, they don't really respect, you know, safe words and consent and things like that. You know, there's the one guy in West Virginia that, you know, we constantly kind of have runs in with. And, you know, we end up dealing with the collateral damage of some of these people and having to, you know, basically, you know, work with these submissives who have been traumatized by these types of people. Yeah, literally broken psychologically and physically. And it is, in my opinion, as, you know, both a Dom and a primal in many ways, you know, it is the worst travesty in the world if someone would do this. It would take someone who would trust so heavily as a submissive does and just abuse that level of power, you know, basically for their ego. And then that's actually one of the reasons why, you know, after talking with Diosa so long, that I started creating Wolfspirit, was to get more education out there and more opportunities that, you know, newer people can come in and just kind of learn the basics. You see all these different classes on like how to do this, like advanced electric play, or how to do, you know, all this stuff, but really just the 101 stuff, these conversations we're having, you know, what are the red flags, you know, that the panels have experienced, you know, like, you know, Mindy and Marie, you guys get it all the time. The DOMs just harassing you on FetLife and, you know, at parties and stuff like that, who basically, you know, are just preying. And that's one of the reasons why with the Diosa parties, we so heavily vet that, you know, if we don't know you and we have not met you in person, you don't get an invite. And that's because of the safety of the people who have been vetted at the Diosa parties. Diosa, do you want to add to that?
No, I second that wholeheartedly. But I do want to back up to some things because the counselor in me is screaming.
Please go ahead.
So I want to make sure the distinctions on sort of the insanity of Hannibal Lecter versus Beauty and the Beast or Phantom of the Opera, those are worlds apart, right?
Agreed.
So to sort of maybe glorify Hannibal Lecter, Or by the way, I didn't know that about David Carradine, Kwai Chang Kang, huge fan. Good job. But they, I think what they were trying to convey is his whole grandiose narcissism.
He was a
right?
narcissist, yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't, even so much as a flex of dominance, which I consider to be more in a positive than what he was doing. So it just, add my.
He ate
little
them for
2
a
cents,
reason.
Yeah.
Well, he ate the root as a public service.
Yeah. But they mixed in a lot of different things,
They did.
There
what
were
he
some that
doing,
he
they
ate.
mixed in like cultural things and Indian reference and things like that, and reasons why he was doing what he was doing. But again, it was because he thought that he was a deity and that he was, bettering himself. So insanity is still insanity, different levels of it. But yeah, they went much deeper than just showing sort of something BS like.
And that's
primal. That wasn't it.
Oh, absolutely.
Wasn't primal.
And that kind of gets into like what Miss K was really asking.
Yeah.
Is it comes down to the intentions of the dom. What is the intentions of the dominant? Are they here to literally their kink is dominating a submissive to raise them up, to make them better. Yes, the beating and the fun stuff, but the hard stuff too. Encouraging them and getting them to be a better version of themselves. That's really what a DNS dynamic is about. The fun stuff's the fun stuff, but an actual true dynamic, you're essentially mentoring and coaching that submissive.
Yeah, and classes like this are, I wanted to say thank you for doing this stuff because Joss and I have been privileged enough that we've gone to a lot of like takeovers or events where during the day they bring in people who've been doing it for years and have degrees, and sometimes people have written books, and we get the privilege of going to these classes. And then I'm part of all these Facebook groups where it's just every day someone is like, hey, new to the thing, looking for advice, and you get 3,000 idiots being like, oh, let me DM you.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. And that's one of the reasons why I like FetLife, because it's so hard for single males to plague it because there's not like a season in it, but they find a way like every other platform. But yeah.
And I also think with Primal, you don't just come into it. You basically not evolve into it, but you get into it. Like I myself did not come into BDSM as a primal. I started as a sub and then I identified as a pet for a very long time, actually. And it wasn't until I came in contact with other people who were primal and was in a relationship with someone who was primal, that part of me actually came out, and it actually surprised me when it happened, but it made so much sense. So I also think that's important to know, is that primal isn't exactly one of those things that you go straight into. So there's other factors that go before it.
I actually had a similar experience. 16 years ago, I started off as the dom, because I didn't, my ego, I didn't want to identify as anything else. I'm like, I'm not submitting. And just do exploring and all that. And, that's, again, I just, over a year or two, I discovered primal and started realizing all of these different characteristics and stuff, how it really, I identified with it. It almost explained me. How about you, Mindy?
I don't know. I just kind of hit the ground running. I don't know.
Well, actually, you were not it at the first. You did, no.
Yeah, I just.
Wasn't to come in contact with this
one. I can't even explain it. It's one of those, I guess, kinkster, I guess you can say. I started out just as exploring and trying to figure out who I was even as a person and the things that I enjoyed. And it just naturally gravitated. And I think part of it is because I just was naturally comfortable with people. Like for the first time that you just meet and it's like, wow, this is a family. This is amazing. So it's just naturally just kind of happened.
Travis, how about you?
I mean, I kind of feel like it goes back to the once you hear about it, it just kind of clicks. It is one of those things that it just fits, you know. And I noticed several times on here you referenced Mike Mackay, but very early on in our
exploration.
Yeah, I think like the first event we went to, someone recommended his book to us, and I think I listened to the whole thing on Audible and went back and listened to it again with Jocelyn. He's got a whole chapter on it in there.
Well, Stuart, I think that you used a really good word earlier, which was discovering primal. You know, like you don't learn it, you don't find it, but you discover that aspect in kink. You go, oh, something clicks. This square peg that I've been trying to put in the round hole for so long. This is where it goes.
No, absolutely. Miss K, how about you?
Yeah, that was a very similar experience for me. I think I was identifying, I think when I first kind of got into, especially the ethical non-monogamy space, I was looking for a more submissive experience. And then I was like, well, that doesn't really fit because I'm not always submissive. So then I started kind of referring to myself as a switch. And that's kind of where I thought that I was, that zone. And then again, kind of getting involved with all of you guys and meeting primals, learning what it was, it really kind of upset the apple cart of everything that I thought I understood about myself. And it was a definite discovery for myself. And it was really like, okay, down the rabbit hole we go on this one to learn what all of this is, because this is clicking on so many levels and I'm really want to learn more about it. So yeah, that process of discovery was very similar for me.
Oh, and I know you and I had a lot of those early conversations when you were discovering primal. And yeah, it's amazing when you're kind of working with someone who's just figuring out primal and the excitement that they're kind of like, getting because it's like someone understands me. Someone understands why I sniff everyone. It's work just calls me creepy and HR keeps calling. Like, it is that kind of excitement, with kind of just feeling accepted. Clockwork, how did you get into primal?
How did I get? Well, yeah, like I said, it was sort of, I was doing a bunch of things and I kind of aggregated like, what is the headspace that I like from each of these things? And it was that kind of flowing, lack of an ego, but still really focused, just violent sexual energy that I enjoyed. So I tried to replicate it.
Oh no, I get that. How about Horny Flowers? When did you first start, and how did you first start to discover your primal side?
So I introduced myself earlier. I've kind of only been in this world for like 6 months or so. But when I say that, I mean I didn't know that FetLife existed, and I didn't know that all things like what they were called. So it's more just that realization of, okay, that's what this is. And it is super exciting because I'm at that point where it's all clicking. But I've been, I'd say, kinky for a very long time, probably 15 years, and didn't really know that's what that was. Earlier, Ms. K asked the question about, someone that maybe just likes things rough versus primal. And that is a perfect example of maybe my progression. Now I understand why so many years ago, with an ex who liked to be bitten, so I was the biter, why I enjoyed that so much. And now I understand the instincts that kick in that take to this other place, and that's where Primal takes me. So yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. So let's we're coming towards the end here, so I just want to give a chance to some of the people who haven't really had a chance to talk yet tonight. Red, anything you'd like to add? Final questions?
I think we'll need to talk more later, but I think I might be a primal. A lot of this is really resonating, and I've just been kind of sitting here being like, this explains a lot. Like, this explains why, like, when I smell something, like, sometimes, like, completely phase out and just start following it aimlessly.
Yes. And I kind of caught a couple of those in the conversations you and I have had. I hadn't said anything because I wanted you to figure that out yourself. But we can talk more later if you like.
Yeah.
Mike, how are you? You've been quiet this entire time.
I just would like to add one thing.
Yeah.
I think something that most people don't do is have that conversation like we're having now. And it is a job or the responsibility of the sub, the bottom, as much as it is the top or the dominant, to have these conversations and to open up the dialogue before getting into the deep play, or because I see too many bottoms, especially submissives, who are just delving into something based on.
Sorry, we're all looking at Mindy. That's exactly how she got into all this. Leaped right into the deep end.
It's kind of like, you know, getting into a relationship under lust and calling it love. So I think they too much want to just dive in feet first and not be around the safe people. Like Mindy was lucky and she's around us and it's safe. It's not, a lot of others don't do that. They just dive right in and don't have this conversation. And it becomes, it can become a dangerous place, or just take them in the wrong direction and get a bad taste in their mouth and not actually get out what they want to get out.
And yeah, that's a common thing. You see a lot of like newer submissives, or even like primals too. They get into a group that doesn't practice like safe, standing, consensual, or like rack agreements and all that. And yeah, it does.
And the world is the fake doms out there, the guys who say they're a dom just to get sex or whatever they do. But
well, so that actually sparks a question that I was curious earlier. Is anyone else hyper aware of everyone at an event they go to?
Yes.
Like anytime we have, you know, our regular monthly meetup, I'm all over the room, and like every little interaction that happens around the entire space, I'm watching out of the corner of my eye being like, what's going on over there? Is that cool? Do I need to go intervene?
So the munches that we do, the meet and greets, the Wolfspirit meet and greets at Bear Chase, I am physically exhausted by the end of every single meet and greet, because I'm all over the place. I'm watching not just our crowd, I'm watching all the other people at Bear Chase. You know, I'm looking for stalkers, because it's a real thing in the kink community. And there are people that we look out to make sure that, you know, our members are being safe. So I'm doing that. I'm dealing with that if one of the stalkers show up. You know, I'm meeting new people, and honestly, like I'm an empath. So like my battery is like drained by the end of the night. And there's been a couple nights where I'm like, I think somebody might have to drive me home tonight because I'm just so emotionally and like physically drained. And it's the same thing with the play parties. You know, when we first started doing play parties in the new space, like I was doming all night, or dungeon monitoring all night. And it got a little too much. And then we started rotating it, where people were going back and forth and, you know, taking turns watching everyone and make sure everyone's playing safe. And that's something that, you know, now we regularly practice, so that, you know, everybody can have fun and everybody can take a turn. You know, rotate Josh, get him out of the bar and out, and he can actually do something. And that way,
Josh loves the bar.
Josh does love the bar. we all love Josh. But yeah, no, like that's deep into the empath kind of stuff.
And this is Marie. I do that too. At events I go to, places I go to, parties, even through sessions like this with other people as well. It ends up I tend to be helping along with that. So yeah. I tend to be all over the place.
And that gets into the protective category of the 6 traits. You know, like I am super protective of not only like my pack, but the other people who are in like the Diosa Wolfspirit circle. I mean, the last meet and greet we had, I walked one of the new people to her car because there was not somebody who was in the group, but there was another person at Bear Chase who was making her uncomfortable. So I walked her to the car to make sure that that person didn't follow them out of the building. But that goes back to that protective nature. No, that was a great thing to bring up. Who we missing? Bear, anything you'd like to, any questions, comments, or concerns?
You're talking about fake doms taking Primal too far. My first interaction with Primal, granted, I've never tried it, but I was talking to a girl I met, I think, on Tinder, and she was telling me she's Primal Prey, but to her, it's a free-for-all in the woods, very, very limited hard limits.
You can go ahead and send me her Tinder profile. I'd appreciate it.
So I watched an interview where some YouTuber decided they were gonna make some edgy content and go interview the local dungeon proprietor, and she goes in and he's talking about consent and negotiation, and she's like, oh, just whatever, I'm just here to learn. He's like, all right, I'm gonna shave your head. Just straight face, and watch the blood drain out of her face. He's like, don't ever say that to a dom.
Yep. Oh, and yeah, that's actually a great example. I love it. But yeah.
Whatever.
What'd you say?
Just the typical sub not choosing things, going, oh yeah, I'm good with whatever. Just whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask people who are new going, so what are your hard limits? Oh, I have no hard limits. Oh, really? So, so you're into this, and this. Oh, no. Okay.
No, that's too far.
Yeah.
Well, then you have hard limits. Let's sit down and actually do a rack agreement. Yeah, and everyone I play with, I always do like a full rack agreement. And I'm actually thinking about doing one of these one-on-one sessions on how to do a rack agreement and safe, sane, and consensual. To kind of just do a whole educational series on that.
When you do get in touch with me, I'll give you the name of someone who gave me the most comprehensive PDF I've ever seen in my life. It's incredible.
What's the PDF on?
A spreadsheet of all of the options for rack.
Yeah, it is. It's the most comprehensive list of I've ever seen. You can and it's got check boxes on it. You can print it out and hand it to someone, and they just.
Oh, you have to say. I actually, for my rack agreement, it's a 4-page legal document that I had a kinky lawyer write up. And when I do the class, I'll actually provide the template so people can use it. But yeah, send me that. I'm fascinated to see what it is. That's awesome.
I've got a similar Excel sheet that actually that sub gave me that's got a whole bunch of things and it's all broken down.
I think we're making a connection here.
But also have one I sent you a few months ago that I got from a dom here.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah,
that was
there's some interesting stuff out there, especially when it comes to rack agreements and things like that. And the big thing is just to have that safe, sane, and consensual conversation. I mean, that's so critical.
I think we still carry ours around in our play bag, just like what we filled out the first year. I'd be interested to go back and revisit it.
We should update that.
Yeah, well, there's a couple exercises that I do when I coach people with kink. And one of them is the sex map exercise. I don't know if anyone's ever done that here. And we're actually over in time, so we got to wrap this up. But the sex map exercise, and then there's a dom sub survey, and it's one that gets really into detail, where it gets into like psychological pie graphs and everything, and it's just fantastic. Yeah, so we need to, I apologize. Real quick, Ms. Kay, anything you want to add before we go?
Nope, you're all good.
Thank you, Ms. Kay. And Mrs. Simi, how are you? You've been quiet. Still there?
She left like an hour ago.
Yeah, she had to leave.
Well, I'm pretty sure I know why she's been quiet. And she didn't even say goodbye. We're in a fight. So just want to thank anyone. We already did final questions. Real quick, I just want to do a couple plugs here. We have a big Diosa event coming up on February the 20th. Do you want to talk about that? You want me to?
Yeah, so we are excited. We're hosting a rave, and it's celebrating our bartender Joshua for his birthday. So
it'll be glow in the dark.
Yes.
Yep, glow in the dark paint and electric play.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun night. So wear your neon stuff. And
if anybody needs to be vetted, what's the next event?
So yes, so for vetting, we have the Munch coming up on February 4th. Our meet and greet is always the first Thursday of every month. So that's coming up actually next week. So anyone out there who wants to meet us face to face and start the vetting process, that is the event to do it at. So it's at Bear Chase every month on February 4th. It starts at 5 and it goes till like 8 or 9, depending on how tired everyone is that week. But you can usually see it. We have the big black banner that's got the Wolfspirit logo on it. So just look for us. Yeah, you can RSVP on FetLife or on my website. But yeah, just either way, just let me know you're coming so that we can look for you. Because Bear Chase is unpredictable. Some days it's dead, and other days it's packed. And we do socially distance. We try to get a little corner where we can spread out. Everybody's not on top of each other. And that way we can kind of spread out and keep 10 people to a table. And that way, we're somewhat socially distancing. But yes.
Yeah, that's always a challenge with Primals, though.
Yeah, I know. Next thing you know, Mindy's biting me again. But yeah, I really want to stress that that is the event in which we do all of our vetting. So you have to come to that event in person in order to be vetted for Diosa events. And vetting, just coming to one event doesn't mean you're vetted. So we need to get to know you a little bit and to kind of again, make sure that, you're safe and all that. Because if you're coming into this new, again, we've had to deal with a lot of people who are stalkers and things like that. And again, we want to keep Diosas as safe and open and as a, comfortable place to experiment as we can possibly make it. We also have some other events coming up. We have a hands-on workshop, and we always kind of do a photo shoot with that. We usually do those every other Friday on alternating weeks from the Kink 101s. So next Friday will be the next one on February 5th. And the way that works is if you want to come and do your own thing, you're welcome to come and do your own thing. Some people come and just work on rope, or they come with their partner and, go do their own thing, work on impact play. If you want to learn something, me and Diosa are here. We're kind of like, the pros, the golf pros, or whatever. We'll work with you. Just let us know what your topic is in advance and we'll come and we'll open it up to everybody there who wants to learn about whatever you want to learn. So it's kind of like an open play, and we're willing to do workshops and things like that as well. And we have the Wolfspirit photographer there. She's stunningly amazing. Anyone who's seen my Instagram, a lot of the photos are from her. She's very talented. So she'll be there if you want to capture. There are no photos at the Diosa parties. That's why we do them all at the hands-on workshop, and it's a much smaller event so that we can control who's in the photos. So February 10th is the next virtual Kink 101. I only planned out 3 sessions because we wanted to see how this was going. So I am open to topics. If you have topics that you want us to go into a Kink 101, you want me to do a little research and pull together, we will do it. February 19th is the next hands-on workshop after that. And of course, the 24th is the next virtual after that. Diosa, anything you want to add before we head off?
No, but I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. So just celebrate Josh.
I know, I'm excited.
He's
Josh's
good to us.
birthday.
Yeah.
BrightEyes, anything you want to add? All right, well, thank you from all of your hosts. Thank you to all the panel members who sat in today. This was a great discussion. Again, this is one of my favorite topics. I've been waiting to do this forever, so I love talking about this stuff. And of course, thank you to all the participants who joined us today and really asked questions and kind of empowered the whole situation. Thank you so much. Other than that, we'll see everybody at the next Kink 101, and thank you and be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.